Grace Gravestock, who pictured somewhere on this screen, is a change advisor and What's My Purpose coach. The title of her presentation today is Discover Exactly What You're Hardwired to Be and Do. She has 20 plus years of blue chip corporate experience as a change manager. She can help us through all of this chat GPT stuff, and a lifetime as a personal transformation maverick. She will share what you need to know to not only survive, but thrive through the changes ahead. Grace helps midlife professionals create a meaningful and abundant next chapter based on their unique genius, as indicated in their energetic blueprint. I love every single word that's in that introduction. So with no more delay, let's give a warm welcome to Grace Gravestock.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was very generous. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you fine.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm super excited to share something with you that might be, I believe it will be life-changing for you as it was for me. And the other thing is that it might be really different than anything you've ever heard. So I hope you're ready to have your idea of reality perhaps challenged a little bit. So today I'm going to share something about how you're hardwired, and this image gives you an idea. There's a lot of math and numbers related to how you're hardwired, and it's probably something different than you've discovered before, so I'm going to share a little bit more about that. And I'm going to start with this. Wouldn't it be great if you could be and do exactly what you're here to be and do and even get paid for it? Of course, that's why you're here, right? And what if you knew the specific leadership traits that make you stand out? And what if you knew the ideal job characteristics that are uniquely fun and easy for you? My dad used to say, if you love what you don't work a day in your life. And that's been true as long as I'm doing work that I really love. And I believe that's true for everyone. And wouldn't it be great if you knew how to get clarity on what you want in your next life chapter? And where you're coming from might be very different than where you're going. So I'm going to give you some insights today. The good news is it can be fun and easy. And if you're going through change right now, I want to challenge you and encourage you to say this out loud. You can keep keep yourself muted so we don't have to all hear everyone, but just repeat after me. This is to make your change fun and easy. I choose to make this change fun and easy. I choose to make this change fun and easy. Now, why do I say that? Because I know how you're hardwired, and I probably know things about your hardwiring that may be new to you. And when you speak, the words that you speak are so important in the way that you see the world. Today, I'm going to introduce you to some new ideas that I believe can really help you find clarity in what you want to do next. So you're in the right place if you're looking for clarity on your next chapter. If you're concerned about tech and job changes, we just talked about all the chat GPT stuff, and you want to know your unique genius, if you're looking for work that's more meaningful than what you've been doing or what you're doing right now, you are in the right place. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about what's coming with AI and large-scale job losses, which you already probably know more than I do. Really, we're going to focus our time on helping you understand your unique genius. I call it your professional type. And what I encourage you to do now is get your free chart now. This is your life purpose summary. It's 2 pages at whatsmychart.com. It is based on your date of birth, your time of birth, and your city of birth. And I can explain all that at the end if you need to know. It is my database. Your data is safe with me. It's not going anywhere. It's really just for the configuration of being able to pull a chart that makes sense to you. If you're concerned about it, put a different name. But it is important, the information that you put in there in terms of pulling the right chart, which is going to tell you what you're uniquely configured to be and do, literally your energetic hardwiring. And I call it your energetic blueprint. So you can get that now at whatsmychart.com. And what we're going to talk about today is how to find your ideal work. I'm going to introduce you to some heretical ideas that are a little different than probably what you've heard before. And this will help you to discover how to invest your time in what matters to you while also being of service. That's part of the next steps. And I know that the people that I've met in this organization are always wanting to be of service. And so that's why I say that. So we all want to be useful and of service usually, and we also want to be compensated for what we do. So we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. If you have questions, put them in the chat as they come up, and Kathy's going to be managing those, and then she's going to share them with me at the end so that we can answer them all at once, because some of what you're going to ask is probably going to be answered. So real quick, who am I and why should you listen to me? I help people in transition create a life they actually want to live through my What's My Purpose program. Why am I uniquely qualified to help you with this? I worked for all these big companies for lots of years, and all of a sudden, about 7 years ago, my world shifted. My now ex-husband, put a knife to my neck. All of a sudden, I had to leave in a hurry. It was a lot of drama that was really unexpected and surprising. I thought I had everything. I had a great job, brand new car, new house, all these things. But all of a sudden, my life flipped, and I was going through a divorce. I got laid off, was downsizing, health crisis, all in a very short period of time. And I was ready to check out. I really had enough of the pain. I had these debilitating migraines. And after all this stuff, I just thought, I've worked all my life for all this stuff, and now it's just disappeared all in a moment. Like, what is the point? And I'm in so much pain. Like, I don't know, raise your hand if you've ever been in that situation where you're just ready to be done. So that's where I was at. I made a choice, and this is a key component, and that's why I'm sharing it. I made a choice to keep going. I made a choice to contribute, to stay around. I had a sense that I'm here for something bigger. And so when I made that choice, what God or the universe showed me was why that was the right choice. Because I suddenly realized when I got my first reading of this energy blueprint called Human Design, I had a breakthrough. I realized that I'm perfect the way I am. I'm not broken after all. I've been told by my bosses, by my ex-husband, so many people that every performance review was all the things that I needed to fix and all the problems. Raise your hand if you've been there and you're just like, seriously, am I just broken because I just keep getting all this negative feedback? I know I do some things right, and I know that it can't be true that I'm just broken. So you're not broken, and I'm going to show you right now how to know that you're not broken. And it's based on your configuration, and it's based on expectations that you might have about yourself and others might have for you that are different than what your hardwiring shows. So when I learned about my energetic blueprint, it was a real breakthrough for me, and it was such a big aha that I was fascinated, and I went down the rabbit hole, and I decided I've got to share this with a lot of people because it's so empowering to know that you're not broken after all, and you don't have to listen to somebody making stuff up to try to make you feel better about who you are and your value. You can actually see it on the screen on a piece of paper. You can see that you're different. You can see how you're different. So this was a really big deal to me. It was a breakthrough. And so I tried, because I tried all the things that I had been selling to my clients for all these years about managing change, like how do you manage change on a personal level? But what I found was that there was this gap, and the gap was in energy and frequency. I worked with some of the smartest people in the world at some of these companies like Deloitte and Dell and governments, the state of California. And I talked to the CIO of California, smart people, right? And nobody had ever said anything to me about energy or frequency. So it was really mind-blowing at first, and I was very skeptical, I'll be honest. But what it has led me to is a place where I'm so excited that I want to share this. I have a goal to empower 5 billion people by 2025 through this thing I call the Know Yourself Revolution. And I envision a future where we all can be and do what we're here to be and do without being told by someone else what that is, but we can choose it. And so choosing it, that's why I say I chose to stick around, because your power of choice is a key component in how you go through this career change that you're in the process of. So if we start with a quick context setting of what's coming, we can talk in terms of old ways, old paradigm ways, and new ways. I'm not going to read The Cow Path by Sam Foss, but it's a really funny poem. It's an old poem. It's a long poem, but basically it talks about how a long time ago there was this cow path. There was a cow that just was walking through the hills, and eventually and so he was wandering all over the hills, all through the pasture, and that cow path became a road, and that road became a highway, and very eventually you got all these people going in all these crazy places. It's certainly not the most efficient way to get from point A to point B, but it was the path that started by this cow a long time ago. And so why I mention it is because it represents the way that so many of us think about how we look at our lives and what we're here for. And so we're conditioned by all these, what I called old paradigm ways, to try to fit in a box. And I just did a big one day live event a couple of weeks ago. If you Google me or you check me out on YouTube, you'll see a lot of videos about this. I've been sharing about this, that what I see is coming in terms of why we're going through all these changes. We talked earlier about ChatGPT. That's just one piece of it, but there's the old way of living, working, and being is falling apart. And you don't need me to tell you that. You already know it because you're experiencing it in your life. I'm here to show you a new way, which is very different probably than you've heard before. So spoiler alert, might be a little heretical. You know that the stats look pretty bad for the future of work. A lot of automation, right? And a lot more jobs being lost as we go forward. Every week we see new headlines. And so that could lead us to a place of fear. But I'm encouraging you to look at it as a harbinger of change, as a way to look to new ways of living, working, and being, that instead of keeping us stuck in ruts and trying to shove us into a box that we might not fit into, what if it was really a VIP pass to an amazing life where we're actually doing work that we enjoy, and we're actually able to have the freedom to not do those rote mechanical things that now automation does or technology does, but we could really focus on the things that are our unique genius, the things that only we can offer the world. And that's my key message for you, is that you have something that nobody else has, and you have an irreplaceable part to play in the tapestry of life. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that when we look at your configuration. So get your chart at what'smychart.com. We're going to get into that in just a minute. So what does it mean to live on purpose? This is the new way of living, working, and being. It means choosing intentionally the life that you want, not because other people have told you that you have to do it. You have to have 2.5 kids. You have to have a white picket fence and whatever, all these things. Have a good job that's full-time and it pays you a particular kind of salary, and you have a certain 9-to-5 job. It may be true for you. And if that's what you want, I'm saying go for it. But I'm also saying, if this hasn't been fulfilling, if what you're coming from is not where you want to go, I'm going to offer you a different way. And that different way is about living on purpose. So we start with this premise that there is no one size fits all. And I want you to imagine that you are configured a lot like a computer. And so if you're a laptop and I'm an iPhone, we can do a lot of the same things, but really we're built to do different things. If I'm an iPhone, then I'm meant to be portable. And if you're a laptop, you might also be portable, but not as portable. And you're not going to be making calls. Whereas if I'm an iPhone, I'm making calls. So the point I'm trying to make here is that I believe we are all like a computer. We're configured in certain ways. And so you are perfectly hardwired or configured to be and do what you're here to be and do, which is different than what I'm here to be and do. And that's okay. And we're moving into a time where you're going to have a lot more support. By support, I'm talking about something that's probably going to sound really heretical to you, but it's called background frequencies. It's like an energetic frequency that's in the background that supports humanity. And the one we've had for the last 410 years is supporting sameness. It supports all of us fitting in the same box. But the one that we're shifting into in 2027, and we're really in the process of it right now, is a background frequency that supports you in being uniquely you. So the good news is you don't have to fit into a box anymore. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to answer that question in the context of what I believe you came here for, which is how to find your ideal work. And so there's a lot about your unique configuration that we could talk about. We're going to start with the high-level summary of your professional type, because when you're aligned, my whole premise is when you're in alignment and your life is in alignment with who you are, meaning if you're doing what you're configured to do, be and do, I say, not just do, but be and do, that's important. When you're configured for that, you are also set up for financial success. You're also set up for more well-being and happiness because you're doing what you're meant to do instead of something else. So this is where we get a little bit heretical. And if you've ever heard of human design, I'm curious, put human design in the chat if you are familiar with this. Most people are not, so I'm assuming that you haven't heard of this. But if you have, put human design in the chat so that I get a sense for how many people already are familiar with this. You are one of 5 types. And so the purpose of this slide is to introduce you to the concept, which is really just a visualization of something that you already know. So if you've been in a meeting, a work meeting, and everybody's in the meeting, you're all busy with what you're doing, and then somebody comes in late and they're really angry, they don't have to say anything, right? Everybody in the room feels that something is off about this person that just walked in. So it's not about the words, even though we often think that communication is about the words. It's actually about what we call your aura, or your energetic blueprint is actually speaking. And so if you want to know more about this, you can go to heartmath.com. I think it might be heartmath.org, but they talk about the energetic field that we all have around us. And so what we're looking at here on the slide is the fact that there's 4 different ways based on your configuration that you would interact with the world. And so this, even if you don't go any deeper than this, you can understand that we're all really different. And so this gives you a sense for, wow, if you're this type, you're 70% of the population. And when you walk into the room, it feels like a warm and enveloping hug for most people. If you're this projector orchestrator type, you're really good at one-on-ones, and you're not really comfortable in a group as comfortable in a group situation where you're trying to deal with a lot of people at the same time. Because your superpower is one-on-one. If you're this trailblazer type, you really need a lot of space, and you've probably wondered why people push away when you walk in. And if you're a reflector, you're in a minority group of 1%, and you can practically read minds. So let's get into a little bit more about what that means based on your professional type and how you are meant to best express yourself in the world as it relates to work. So we start with this thing called your human design type. And I mentioned this before, 70% of us, and I'm using these terms because I want you to get an idea of what this means without having to learn the jargon. You might be 70% of us are basically builders. We're like the worker bees. And then there's a smaller percentage of folks that have a different role. So these orchestrators that make up 20% of the population, they're really meant to guide the energy of the builders, the worker bees, and they're really good at managing people, or managing energy is really what they're good at. You'll learn more about that in just a minute. But this other type, the trailblazers, 9%, they're really here to start things. And we've got our calibrator, analysts, reflectors, they're 1%. So let's learn more about what that means. So if you haven't got your chart, go to what'smychart.com and get your free chart, because that will help you understand more about what this means for you. So this first one, I start with the builder because the builders make up 25% of the population. And if you're either a builder or express builder, it's really important to you that you love what you do. And I say do intentionally because you're here to do stuff and to create and to be active. And so when you're doing the work that you love, which is really important in your energy levels, you find that you're like the Energizer Bunny. So this type, we called you builders. If you've studied some of these other systems, you might recognize these other words, but really you're the ones that have an ability to follow a process. You're good at following directions. Not to say that you always do, by the way, but you can follow directions, and you can follow a process, A to B to C, C to D to E. And you might think, if you're this type, duh, can't everybody do that? No, the answer is not everybody does, and not everybody has the capacity to really be as sequential as you are. And your secret sauce is really in getting mastery over processes and things that you do over and over again. So you're really good at being like a marathon runner in the game of life. Because you're here for mastery and you're doing the same thing over and over, you can get really good. In fact, you have the potential for perfection in your area of expertise. Now, some of the challenges you have, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees because you're so focused on the actual work, because you're the worker bee and you're doing stuff. You're really good in group settings. And if you're not If you have something that's not in your genius zone, it's probably best to outsource that. So the key thing for you to remember is that you want to be patient with yourself and don't compare yourself with others, because you're different. You're like 35% of the population. So everybody else, 2 out of 3 people are going to be different than you. And your open and enveloping aura attracts. You're like a giant magnet that attracts to you what you're meant to, what you focus on. So that's why I say it's important what you choose, because when you set that intention, when you speak those words, you're literally programming the energetic field around you to bring things to you that match the, I'm going to say, the frequency of what you're thinking and you're feeling, the words that you speak. So that's the key thing. So this is the majority of us are like that. Now the second largest group, about 33%, 30 depends on your source, but about 30%, 33% are like me. We're express builders, really good at finding shortcuts, always seeking efficiency. Why do I say that? Because we're good at skipping steps. That's our superpower. So this type makes up, okay, 35% of the population. We're good at shortcuts, so we can be fast. We can be the Jack and Jill of all trades. We're the only type that's meant to multitask. And we're actually experts at finding work in sprints, like doing things fast and then taking a time of rest, and then doing it really fast and then taking breaks. So we don't have necessarily that consistent energy of the builders, because our superpower is to find shortcuts so that the builders can be more efficient. And we can go ahead of them a little bit and say, try this, and that will save you time. But like the builders, we can get lost in the weeds. We might need to learn how to pause this and talk more slowly. I find that I talk really fast. I'm really trying to speak more slowly so it's easier for you to hear me and understand what I'm saying, because I tend to move fast. Now, that speed is part of why I can find shortcuts. It's just the way I'm hardwired. But I can also be seen as flaky. This type can be seen as flaky because they can turn on a dime. They're very flexible. And so if you're this type, you want to ask yourself yes or no questions all the time, because what was true for you, let's say you committed last week to being at this thing, and then this morning you're getting ready and you're like, oh, I'm just not feeling it. So that's okay. So you want to ask yourself yes or no questions. Is this still the right thing for me? Is it still the correct thing for me to do? Do I still want to go to this thing? Because you might change your mind. So that can be seen as flaky, but when you become good at informing others of how you work and how you need to have flexibility, then you can set those expectations and you basically train others in how to respond to you and how to understand your behavior. And also the builder types, you have that open and enveloping aura, which attracts. So again, it's really important what you think about, what you speak about, and what you set your intention for, because again, that programs that field that goes before you and sets an energetic framework for what you're experiencing in your life. Now, the next type is what we call an orchestrator. In traditional human design, this is called a projector. And these people are very special. If you're an orchestrator type, you have a very unique role in the future, because we're going to need more guidance as things change. I'm telling you, as a change manager, as a change agent, as a person who's an expert in change for all these years, and I'm looking at patterns and I'm seeing future trends, and I'm telling you that things are going to only get more and more changing, like faster, longer, quicker cycles of transformation and change. And I don't want to scare you by saying that, but what I want to say is that each of us plays an important role in creating that new, what I call the new paradigm. It's the new ways of living, working, and being. So this particular type is usually very wise. Because one of their superpowers is seeing into the other person. It's very one-on-one. They're very good at helping the other person or a group, if it's a group of people that are doing the same thing, ideally, helping the group be more efficient and effective. That's why I say if you're this type and it says energy management, you might not relate to yourself as a manager per se. A lot of my clients that see this on their report, they say, what do you mean? I'm not a manager. I don't like managing people. But the fact is, you're really good at managing energy, and that can be the energy of a person, a group, or an organization. And you actually have superpowers in this department. So if you're this type, you make up about 20% of the population, can be a really great facilitator, great with insights and influence, and you're here to be recognized for your wisdom. And it's only when you're recognized that you're going to really be able to shine, because there's a lot of people that don't get you. And if they don't get you, then it doesn't matter how amazing the things are that you say, they're not going to be received because they just don't get you. That's why you need to wait for the invitation or wait for the recognition before you share your wisdom. So this says you're like a lighthouse and you need to get comfortable in the spotlight. That's because what's coming is a lot of change, and you're going to be needed in a new and different way. And this professional type orchestrates and can really help us manage the changes that are coming. So if you're this type, you've been misunderstood most of your life, because the fact is you're not like everybody else. You're very different. But you can be good at designing new things. You're good at managing a team. It's really important that you look at burnout, because if you're not in alignment, you're not sharing your wisdom with people that invite you, you're going to get burned out, because you're going to be trying to give it to people that don't deserve you, and they're not worthy of what you have to share. And so it's important that you wait for that recognition, because that's how you know if the people that you're sharing with are worthy of you. So this type is not designed for typical 9-to-5 jobs. That's because you have inconsistent energy if this is your type. And so you know that about yourself. And so your energy kind of waxes and wanes. And so it can be hard for you to fit into a 9-to-5 box. You can be seen as too sensitive or maybe even lazy, because you need to take time to relax often. It's not about you being lazy. And if you're this type, you already know this, but for everybody else around you, they might see you as lazy. And the reason is because you don't have the motors, the Energizer Bunny motor, to keep working at the same pace like everybody else does, the other worker bees, because you're not a worker bee. So it's important that you wait to be recognized before you share your wisdom, and know that the way you're meant to interface with the world is with what we call a focused and absorbing aura. So you're really great at one-on-one, and you can literally see into the other person. Now, if you're this type and you say, I can't see into another person, it just means that you have the capacity for it and you haven't yet stepped into those gifts. But the way that you're configured is it allows you these superpowers. And this is the group that I find the most interested in the work that I do, because when they hear this, if you're like this type, you're like, oh my gosh, somebody that gets me. Yeah, I don't fit in. This is interesting. What does this mean for me? So if this is, you'll also recognize maybe that you do better when people ask you open-ended questions, as opposed to yes or no questions, which are good for the builder types. So there is another group that's called the Trailblazers, really good at starting things. Your role as we go forward is the same as it's been in the past, but it's really important as we build and create new things that you follow your internal prompting and your internal energy surges, which is what you'll be driven by to start things. And so you're here to start things. If you're a trailblazer, you're about 8 or 9% of the population. You're the only type that's really configured for sales. Now, a lot of us have to do sales or get to do sales or get put in sales roles. And maybe you've had some success at it if you are not this type. But I'll tell you what, this type is really good at sales. Why? Because they're the only ones that are configured to be able to go and just do it. Like the Nike commercial, just do it. They're the ones that can just go out and do it and make it happen and initiate and start things new. They're the only type that are really configured to do that naturally. We can learn it. Everybody can learn sales, and there's certain aspects that we all tend to sell ourselves or not. But this is the only type that's really configured to just go out and do cold calling, for instance, or go out and meet people, like knock doors or whatever it is. They're also good at visualization. They tend to be very charismatic and powerful with this aura that really gets people moving, because that's what they're here to be, as a fire starter, a trailblazer, a pioneer. They start things, they brainstorm, they innovate, they make things happen, they get things going. They're not the operations people, not at all. Why? Because they have inconsistent energy, just like the orchestrator types, and just like the manifesting generator express builder types. But they need the generator types or the builder types to direct and or do the work. So if you're this type and you've had to do the work, then you know that you can do it, but it's hard for you to have that staying power, that Energizer Bunny power, to just keep going and going and going, because you're not meant to do the work like the builder types are. You're meant to direct the energy of others, and you have superpowers related to that with your voice, with words. You're here to inform, and inform can sound like directing. So this type makes really good directors, but they're not necessarily made for typical 9-to-5 schedules either, because of that inconsistent energy flow that they have, and they need space to create. The last group is what we call an analyst. In other language, they're called reflectors, or there's other words. They're super sensitive. They can practically read minds. They're only 1% of the population, and they play a role in a community. In an ideal world, you would have one of these in every community, maybe in a family, maybe if we were living in a communal way, you definitely want to have a calibrator, analyst, reflector type there. Why? Because their superpower is in telling immediately who is not right, who is out, who doesn't fit in here, who is not healthy, who is not. And it's not about being excluding people, but it's about being able to tell what is needed for the group to be healthy. That's what it's really about. So this particular type is really good at reading people's energy and creating meaningful connections. They can easily assimilate into almost any environment and community. Why? Because they have all these giant, I'm going to call them receiving dishes. If we end up working together, you'll understand more about what I mean. But this image down here, it represents what we all have, this energy blueprint, which determines what we're here to master and what we're here to learn about. So this particular type has a lot that they're becoming wise about, because they're literally picking up all this information like a receiving dish. Now, if your chart shows color in any part, that color represents what you're here to master. But what's unique about this group, this 1%, is that they are not here to master that much. They're not, because meaning they don't have a lot of consistency in their life. Their life is very variable. And that's what all the white space on this configuration means. They really play an important role as a mirror for other people, and they either absorb or reflect the energy of the other person. So they need to take time with their decisions. They actually need a full month. And so that can be really challenging in our society, where everybody wants a decision right away. If you get a job offer, they're like, we need to know by tomorrow or next week or whatever. This particular type really needs a whole month to feel into whether this is correct for them or not. And so that's heretical for me to say that, but it's based on configuration. So it's important that you know that everybody's different. And if you have somebody in your family, or maybe this is you, that needs a lot more time to make decisions, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have a different configuration, and it's important to understand what that is. Just if you got a new computer, you would appreciate the idea of having a manual. If you're like me, you probably skip reading it. But knowing that there is a manual that explains like how things work is really helpful. And that's what I'm here to do, is help you see what the manual looks like for you. So this particular type, it's very important that they have a supportive community around them of people that love them, or that appreciate the person they're becoming, because they absorb everything about the people that they're around. And so if this is, it's a big deal. You're very unique and special, and important that you have a lot of rest. So your aura is called sampling and amplifying. It means that you're going to really make everybody around you better, like a better version of themselves in the ways that they're really amazing, and possibly worse if there was such a thing as judgment, because you're going to really amplify or reflect back to them like a mirror would what they're sending out. So super important role. So the next thing that everybody wants to know is, how do I get clarity on what I should and shouldn't do? So, again, we want you to start with your whatsmychart.com, look at your chart, because in that free 2-page report, it says decision-making strategy at the bottom. And this is really how to make decisions for you. But I'm going to share with you a quick process that I teach that's going to help you. And this is the bullet point about discovering how to do what you want, the things that are meaningful and satisfying to you. So the process starts with, who are you? So you want to learn about who you really are. You want to identify your secret sauce or your unique genius. And I can tell you that with your looking at your energy blueprint. We'll talk about that in a minute. You want to recognize your current beliefs and be willing to change them. That's a really big one for most people. Most people are not ready to look at what they believe and how it informs how they're showing up in the world and how that informs the decisions that they've been making. So if this is you, I want to challenge you to be open to look at your beliefs. I recently have experienced something amazing with this thing called theta healing, which is really a way to, these people who are well trained in it, they're using I'm going to say this is probably not 100% accurate. This is my interpretation of it. They're using brain waves to help you reconfigure your belief system to support who you are and where you're going, and change old patterns that don't work for you anymore. So that's a new way of being that I didn't even know existed. It was only been about a month that I've known about this thing called theta healing, and I've had several sessions, and it's been amazing for helping me change some things, some old patterns that have been really holding me back. So why do I mention that? Because I want you to understand that you may not have thought about this. What are your beliefs? What are your values? Like, I know right now, if you're in this job career shift phase of your life, you're really focused on just getting that next job probably, and just paying the bills and paying the rent and whatever else. But I want you to understand that you have a unique opportunity in this space that is your life right this minute to really take some time to consider what is it that you believe and be willing to change it. What if everything you thought about XYZ was different? I'll give you a quick example. I'm a lifetime vegetarian. I heard all my life about how bad meat was. And I have a health coach friend who's telling me about all these amazing stories about how people have healed all kinds of things with the carnivore diet, like just meat and fat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds really heretical to me. Like, I've tried meat a few times, but it's just something I still have to really get used to. But what if everything I believed about how important that was for my health, what if I was wrong? Am I willing to change those beliefs? And so I am willing to change those beliefs, and I am considering it, and I am starting to integrate more fish and more meat. And I've even tried steak a few times. Found out that I only like the expensive steak, of course. But my point is, be willing to change your beliefs, because they might be the thing that's holding you back and keeping you stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. And the last thing is, I want you to consider using your imagination so that you can imagine what life looks like, a life that really turns you on, a life that you're excited to get out of bed to start. And I had a client call yesterday, and she was so frazzled and so frustrated and just so all over the place. And I asked her, just, can you take a walk? She was taking a walk while we talked. I said, can you just, when we get off the phone, spend a few minutes imagining what would good look like for your life? And she was really struggling with that. So that told me that this is not easy for a lot of people. And so if this is you, I want to just open your mind to this idea that your imagination is a tool that may be underutilized for you in creating your next chapter. So how do you create on demand? Wouldn't it be great if you could just learn to raise your frequency, boost your mindset, and create what you want in your life? Like, here's where we get a little bit heretical, okay? So spoiler alert, this is going to sound heretical, but it's very simple, and you can get the full process. It's free at activateyourlifepurpose.com. It's an 8-minute video that explains all the details behind this. But what it is, it's a daily gratitude practice, and it will raise your frequency. I get that might be an unfamiliar term to you, but everything has a frequency, and there's lots of books and stuff about it, and it's not something you've probably heard much about, but we all have a frequency. We all have an energy. It's like a channel that we send out. So when you can raise your frequency, what happens is you get to a place where you have an ability to create more intentionally, because the fact is we all create all the time, but most of us are creating things we don't want, right? And you can think about the person that you know that's always complaining about how their life sucks and this and that, and it's drama, and that's always how it is for them, right? What if they're actually creating that by focusing on it? I'm telling you how you can change your experience by raising your frequency, managing your mindset to be more positive, and to start to see around you what you actually have to be grateful for, and to see that you are fully supported. even though you might not feel it in the moment because your employer cut you off or your partner, or whatever it is. What I want you to do is start with what's here and now and use your imagination to create from that higher frequency. So this is the daily gratitude practice. It is my gift to you. I know it makes a big difference. I was live yesterday, and you could go to YouTube if you want to see it. It's in the first 10 minutes. And I shared a video of somebody that went to my events, one of my events recently, and she talked about how it changed her life. She said every morning before this, she was hitting the snooze button about 7 times, and she was sitting in bed, like drinking coffee, trying to get herself motivated to get up. Have you ever been like that? Has anyone ever been in that place? So she started using this daily gratitude practice, and she started noticing shifts in the first 15 minutes. It's really powerful. So here's the shortcut. Instead of limiting yourself by building your future based on your past, what if you were to start with what you want to do? What if you were to start with who you really are instead of all the things that people have told you that you are? And what if you could learn to intentionally create your next chapter? That's what I'm sharing with you in this process, the gratitude practice, all of that. Getting your chart, it helps you see that you're unique. You're not like anybody else, and you have special gifts that nobody else has. And here's a process that you can use to start intentionally creating your next chapter in a way that feels good to you. Like, why not? And if you wanted more of a shortcut, you can get support. I will say that here's how I help people. Here's my methodology. I help you understand why you're not broken and perfect as you are. I help you know what it means to live in alignment with your design. If you're coming from a Christian background, my mom used to tell me, God will answer your prayer as long as you're in God's will. What does that mean? So I spent lots of years trying to figure that out. And now I understand it as it relates to frequency. And I see that it can be measured. And I see that the things that I want probably want me. It's like I'm a frequency match for that. So I'm going to be praying for or asking for those things that are in alignment for me. They're in alignment with what, if you understand it this way, God's plan for you, or the way you're configured, however you want to look at it. Probably what you want is in alignment with what you're here to be and do. And when you are lined up, when you are in alignment, that's when it's going to happen for you. So I teach you how you can stop giving your power away, and suddenly you'll find you have so much more energy. You can practice standing in your full power. Watch out, world. When I finally learned about this and I realized that all these things I'd been doing all my life was giving my power away, it was depressing, to be honest, at first. And then I realized that everything had happened not to me, but for me. And so when I looked at my life through this lens of my energetic configuration, I was able to see the purpose, the meaning behind what had happened to me, but it was actually happening for me. And so that's what I would share with you. And so what I intend for all my clients and for you today is that you get to the place where you can choose what affects you, so that you're no longer subject to external influences, and you can feel into your life purpose themes. These are something on your report that make up 70% of what you're here to be and do. They're actually energy patterns, 4 of them, that you're here to master. But you can't unlock those codes until you get the basics down. You have to be able to live in alignment. And so all the basics are on that free chart at whatsmychart.com. And if you want to know more, reach out to me. I'm not sure if I should spend time on this. I know before I gave a talk to the job club, and so we did a special discount. So I just want you to say, if you want to understand your unique roadmap, your career roadmap, which is specifically what you're uniquely hardwired to do, you can get it at 50% off with this coupon. And so I just want you to know it helps you get clarity in deciding, what does your ideal life look like? What is your next chapter meant to be? So just use that job club coupon code. And here's what some people are saying. This coach, she said, if I had something like this when I left my corporate job 12 years ago, it would have really boosted my confidence starting out as an entrepreneur. Richard, he's a project manager, program manager, and he had a very emotional experience when he looked at his career roadmap. And it specifically calls out what your unique leadership characteristics are, what makes you special, what is it that you're meant to be and do, literally the characteristics that are in your configuration. It's something that I used to do in 10 weeks with my clients to go into detail about their particular configuration, but now I'm able to offer it in a report, so it brings the cost way, way down. And this is what he said. He had actually taken a year off to go to India, learned meditation and yoga, and he just felt like he needed to find his dharma. And what he realized after looking at his career roadmap was, oh my gosh, I am actually configured to be a program manager. No wonder I was so good at it. And that gave him permission to do the work that he is here to do, but he changed it. He decided to do it in a way that he was in charge of how it was instead of being told what to do. And so he's now an independent program manager. And so he has more flexibility and freedom in his life. Julia taught as a teacher. She said it gave me a better understanding of my own style and how I come across to others, what I've been going through and why. The ideal job characteristics helped me to remember what it felt like when they were in play in other jobs. Susan is a contracts manager. She said it was really spot on. She realized that she should be looking for a job where she can do more of the things that come easily to her. And that there's information about your shadow parts too. So the idea, and here's Deb, you might not be into this energy worker, more, I'm going to say esoteric side of life, but even people who are in that space really find that it's useful to understand what they're meant to be and do. And this Cliff Mickelson is an artist, and he said this would be really especially useful for people who are in a transition, or especially young people. It's helpful for people at any age, I think. So here's a quick recap, and we'll have a couple minutes for questions. So we talked about what's coming. We know that there's a lot of change ahead. That's the summary version. We talked about how to know your unique genius and discover what you're hardwired to be and do. I gave you the shortcut to that in your free life purpose summary at whatsmychart.com. And I told you a process that you can use to figure out how to invest your time in what matters. Because as you do the daily gratitude practice, what you're going to find is you're going to see patterns in what you like to do. And that is going to inform what you choose to create in your next chapter. And then if you choose to go further and you want to get your career roadmap or additional support, you will be able to integrate that into creating that next chapter, for which includes your ideal work. If nothing else, here's my invitation to you. Learn about your professional type, just to learn more about yourself, and it can help you in your job career transition. Connect with me on LinkedIn if we haven't already. And if you want support, this is a free call, quick call, kyr.life/quick call. If you want to talk about how we might be able to work together. And so that's all I got. So we've got 5 minutes for questions. Kathy, I'm wondering if any questions have come in. And you're on mute, sorry.
Yeah.
There you are.
No questions are in the chat, although I have a question. I went into your first, I can't remember what it was. The first thing you put on there where you put in where you were born and all of that stuff, which I guess is all about astrology, I would assume. But if you don't know the time that you were born, you just put something arbitrarily?
It's a good question. To start with, just take your best guess. If you have a parent or family member, something that you can text, that's what a lot of my clients do. Or if you have a birth certificate that you can look up, that's going to give you more confidence in the results. If you're really not sure, there's some other ways that take a little bit more time that I can help with. So if you schedule time for a quick call, I can walk you through a process. Basically, we're going to look at a chart every 2 hours and see what changes. And then I'm going to ask you some clarifying questions to help you get so that we can pinpoint which one it is. Most of the time, it's not a huge difference. Sometimes it is. It just depends. Does that help?
I guess so. And then we do have a question, and it's a unique one. It says, the form does not allow me to add my birthplace. I was born on an island, a U.S. territory, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It is not on the list, and the state that issued my birth certificate is 1,300 miles away.
Wow, that's the first time I've come across something that's just really not on there. That's really unusual. You know what, Darla? I think that why don't you schedule a quick call with me, and I'll do some research and try to we can talk about where that is, and I can figure that out for you. I'm really not sure how to answer that. Oh, Midway Island, there it is, Midway Island. Yeah, and so if you put Midway Island in there, I guess you're saying that doesn't work. What you would do is you would put the closest, it just needs to be a city in the same time zone. That's really what the background configuration in terms of how the database is set up. It needs to be in the same time zone. So if you can think of another town or city that is in that same time zone, that should work. That's the shortcut answer.
Okay, that shouldn't be impossible, but it might be. And then we have another one. Can you put the QR code back up?
Absolutely. Yep, there it is. Yep. So you can get your career roadmap if you want, 50% off coupon for Job Club. I really want to make this affordable for everybody. It's so powerful to know what you're specifically here to be and do. And especially when I went through getting laid off twice, it really gave me confidence. I'm going to say confidence issues. Like I was like, what? I'm not good at this, or wait, why did I get laid off? It was so debilitating. And I really started to doubt myself and question my value. And so when you see on paper in black and white, like what you're uniquely designed to be and do, and you can go through that and really pick through it and say, when did I have that? When did I get to do that? Or whatever it is, it's very powerful. I'll tell you a quick story on that. So when I first looked mine up, one of the things that came up for me was something like freedom to do work the way that you want to do it. And when I looked back, my last project, that was literally the best project of my entire career. It was so amazing. I got to produce all this stuff. Anyway, I really had the freedom because I went in, I used the process that I'm sharing with you now. I did the gratitude process. I was actually out of money. I'll be honest with you. I hadn't worked for a couple of years. I figured out how to do Airbnb. I ran out of money and I was like, oh, I guess I have to go back to work. I didn't really want to go back to work, but I had these certain things that I was clear about. Like I only wanted to travel 1 week out of the month. I was willing to travel, but I wanted flexibility and freedom to be able to do the work that I know how to do, but not be told what to do. And so when I did the process that I'm sharing with you, the gratitude process, and boom, within 24 or 48 hours, I got this unexpected text message and an email from a project manager that I hadn't worked with in 12 years. And he said, we lost our change manager. I know you can come in and help us with this. And I said, I don't think you want me because I'm not willing to travel every week. I'm only willing to travel 1 week a month. And he's, no, we'll work with you on that. And so everything that I wanted that was in my gratitude journal, they were able to satisfy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this works. It's happened to me so many times. And if you go to my YouTube channel, the very first video that pops up, it tells you about when I left one of my big tech jobs and how I left without even having another job in place. And I did this process, and within 4 days, I was in the chute for what became my ideal dream job. I got a promotion, I became a director, and it was just exactly what I wanted. But it started with me getting clarity, and I used this process, the gratitude practice. So it's powerful.
Okay, here's one. This guy said, I've gone to the activateyourpurpose.com website, input my information, downloaded my energetic snapshot. What do I do next? Should I look into the leadership and career report, or should we set up a call with you?
I think you can go either way. This is a really good deal, 50% off. It might be a good starting point. You might want to get that if you're interested in knowing. This is really it's the summary of, I still do have a program where for people who want the individualized attention for 10 sessions, but this report actually came out of me wanting to help a lot of people, because I saw in my meditations hundreds of thousands of people getting laid off. This was a couple of years ago. And so I wanted to create something that people could easily download and get a sense for what they're supposed to do and how to create their next chapter. So if it depends on what you want. If you just want to look at it and get started that way, get the career roadmap. If you want to have a conversation first, like schedule time, it's free. So it's really a win either way you do it. So thanks for the question.
Okay, then we have a very long question followed by a short version of it. So I'll start with the short version, and it says, can you give me a suggestion as far as getting unstuck?
Yeah, the biggest suggestion is start with a gratitude practice, because most people who are stuck, what's happening is your mind is like fixed and you're looking at the world in a certain way, and it's hard to get out of that rut. But if you do this gratitude practice, I'm going to go back to that URL so that you can see what it is in case you didn't write it down the first time. Nope, it's not there. It is, where did it go? It's activateyourlifepurpose.com, but you might need to put the www in it first. Oh my gosh, I'm not finding it fast.
It's almost at the end, but I don't
Oh,
remember
almost
what
at the end.
page.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah. So the short answer to how to get unstuck, there it is. Activate your life purpose, www.activateyourlifepurpose.com. So it's a free video. Try that. That's the way to get unstuck, because here's the thing. If you're looking at your life in a certain way and you're just stuck on whatever it is, it's like a record that has a scratch in it. I don't know if you're old enough to remember records, but that's what's happening. So if you start to look at your life in a different way, when you do the first part of this practice, I encourage you to look around and just write down 3 things that you're genuinely happy and grateful for. When you get into this practice on a daily basis, what you'll find is you'll see patterns. And first of all, one of the first patterns you'll see is, oh my gosh, I actually do have a lot to be thankful for. I am fully supported. And I don't need to worry. Like, I'm okay. Like, I have a roof over my head. I have food to eat. And you can get out of that panic mode. And then as you get into the second step, that's where you get to use your imagination to decide, what is it that you want? And what would be better than what you had before? What would be better than you have now? And I encourage you to really think outside the box, because a lot of people are so stuck. When you say stuck, you're stuck in thinking, I need a job. I need a full-time job. One of my clients has an amazing background, and she is just recently, after working with me for 8 weeks, just had a realization, oh, I don't have to have just one job. Like, we're in the gig economy. I could have more flexibility by doing a little of this and a little of this and a little of this, and I'm not really stuck. But she was before thinking she needed a full-time 9-to-5 job. So that's an example of what you can come to and how you can get unstuck when you start doing the gratitude practice, because you start to open up new possibilities when you use your imagination about what could be. And when you get your career roadmap, it's, oh my gosh, that is what I'm good at. I wonder if I could get paid for that. Yeah, you can, because there are people that want what you have, but unless you're able to articulate it, it's harder. We'll say it that way. Any other questions, Kathy?
Yes, let's see. Let's see, this is exactly what I needed to hear about my life right now. I'm definitely going to go back over all this great information. So that was a kudo to you. This one says, looks as though it's another compliment. I love that, Grace. End of your money did Airbnb to survive, but low on funds. Got your energy, self-awareness, focus on point through the efforts you taught here, and bada bing, dream job matched. You're on your way. So lots of inspiring reactions to what you were talking about. So that's good. Unemployment is such it takes over your mindset to such an extent that people forget that they have some time. They need clarity, and to just sit back and think and try to focus and so forth, and appreciate where they are, what they have, and understand that they have some time to make the right decision is important. Yay for you. I
Awesome.
don't see any other questions. It's just appreciation for the message that you had to share.
Oh, good. I'm so glad it's not too heretical. I do sometimes wonder, but this is part of me being here to lead by example, and we're all called to lead by example. So I think I always say the time of the single shingle is over. It's time for collaboration and alignment and frequency. Let's support each other. So if you're interested in learning more and you're not sure if you're ready to take action on getting your roadmap or scheduling time, follow me on social media. I'm doing a live every day this month, except for there were a couple days over the weekend with the eclipse event that I didn't have internet connection. I was out at an event outside of Austin, but every other day I'm doing a live. I usually do them between 4 and 6 p.m. And if you can join, there's a Facebook group, Know Yourself Revolution Facebook group, and it's free. You don't even have to answer any questions. It's because I've set it up in a way that I believe that the world that we're moving towards it's not about obligation, it's about desire. And so you can join, you can do things that you want to do, not because you have to do them, but because you literally want to do them. That's what I intend for all of us. And that's what the Know Yourself Revolution is about. So if you see me on LinkedIn or whatever, you see some of my videos, you'll see that's what I'm about, is really creating a world where we have choice and where we can listen to and trust our own internal guidance system. My big message is know yourself, love yourself, and practice self-care. Why? Because that will raise your frequency and that will help you become a match to something more and better than you've been having. And so whether it's a job or a relationship or both, when you do the work on yourself and you know who you are and you know what you want, that informs what you're going to create in the world, even if you don't know how to create or you don't know that you're creating. You are creating every day, and you're powerful more than you think.